Hello, today I'm making some face mask and I was just going to share some tips on that. And this is the face mask, and what is so special about this one is it has a little pocket on the inside like this, so you can insert a little Kleenex or coffee filter for extra filtration. So we'll start with the pattern, and if you need a pattern I'll make it for you and send it to you. If you want to make it yourself, it's pretty easy. It's this piece of paper, 6.5 by 9. There's two pieces like that for the self, and then the pocket is a square, and it's 6.5 by 6.5. So what you're going to need is some fabric. I would start with a yard of fabric, and then each face mask takes 7 inches of fabric on each side, so a total of 14. And you'll need some pins, a great pair of scissors to cut the fabric, little snippers for the thread, always a seam ripper in case you need to redo something, and then a little ruler. I have this little inside pocket piece, and it's the square piece, and I'm gonna press the edges under 1/4 inch on each side, 1/4, and another 1/4 turn. That way, when they're washed, they won't fray. Okay, so then I'm just gonna stitch those on both sides. Okay, so I'll trim my little thread, 2 pieces of fabric, and when I cut them out, I like to put the right sides together. Inside pocket, those are the right sides facing up. That's real important. And this is going to be the right side faces to the inside. See there? You just have 2 pins and all 3 pieces of fabric. Okay, so I'm going to start stitching 1/4 inch from the edge and back stitch at the beginning, and then I'm going to stitch to almost the middle and back stitch a little bit. Then I'm going to pick up the needle, skip forward about 2 inches, and start again. And I'll stitch frontwards and backwards, and then sew to the edge, and that's that side. Okay, so the reason I'm doing that, because at the end, that's how I'm going to turn it right side out. So I'll take my 2 pins out, and right now I like to cut these little threads from that middle section. I'm going to trim those so it can lay nice and flat for the next step. Okay, so here's the next step. I'm going to open it out, and you're going to see you have that little inside pocket, okay? And I'm going to have 2 pieces of elastic, and they're each 7 inches long. Okay, so I'm going to start, and the very first one is going to go right up against this corner. Can you see it? Okay, so I'm just going to start right there, and that's where I start sewing. And I really don't pin this. You don't really need to pin it. So, okay, 1/4 inch seam again, stitch at the beginning, and I like to forwards and backwards stitch a couple times to really hold that piece of elastic in place. And then I'm going to stitch all the way down, about 2/3 of the way. Then I'm going to go back inside, and see that little piece of elastic is right there. I'm going to bring it right to the end, about 1/4 inch from the edge, and then continue stitching. And when I get to the elastic, I like to go back and forth over that elastic to really secure that. Okay, so you can see right now, that's how that little piece of elastic is going to come out. Okay, so now I'm going to do the other end. So I'll tuck that back in, and I'll do the other end. So I just turn it over, and again, I'm going to put that piece of elastic right there on the end, and I'll start stitching. And again, 1/4 inch seam allowance. You want to really secure that piece where the elastic is, that part, so stitch back and forth. And again, stitch all the way to the edge almost. And then reach in, grab that piece of elastic, and then continue stitching. Stitch back and forth over the elastic, and then that end is done. Okay, so now, there you go. So you have 3 sides sewn, and then I'm going to just take a couple of pins, which is really optional here. You can skip it, but if you want to pin it, it's okay. Okay, so 2 pins. I'm going to stitch this last long edge like so. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch again, all the way. And that's it. We're going to want to trim just a little bit of that edge so that when we turn it right side out, it's going to be better. Okay, I'm going to trim that edge, and this one, and this one. Okay, Then we're gonna go back to that little opening, which is right here on one of the long sides. And I'm gonna push that out, right side out. And here we go. It went right side out, and I pressed it for you, okay? And then I put 2 little pins right here at the top, and that's where that original opening is, and I'm gonna stitch that closed. Okay, now you'll see that if you turn it out and it looks like the wrong edges are showing, don't worry at all. You're just gonna flip it to the other side. That just means that it was turned on the wrong side. And I'm gonna stitch that whole long side. I'm gonna top stitch it, which means I'm just gonna go right on the top and stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the edge on that whole side. Trim that last piece of thread. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm gonna do another quick press, and then that little part where the top stitching is, that's gonna be the bottom of the mask. We're gonna make these little pleats on the end, right here. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is fold the face mask right sides together, and right at the center, you're gonna put a pin to mark the center. Then you're gonna take that and then just fold it over about 1/2 inch. Can you see that? 1/2 inch. And put a pin. And then on the other side, you're gonna fold it over and 1/2 inch. And just leave that center pin in. We can take that out later. And so you're gonna end up with the pleat, a center pleat of 1 inch. Okay, and at the beginning, when you're figuring this out, it's a good idea to have a little ruler because you want it to be the same size on each side. And that's about it. And I'm gonna top stitch it to secure it. And I'll leave the pins in and back stitch, of course, at the beginning, straight through, all the way to the other side. And always forward and back stitch at the back, at the front and the end to secure. And then these, when you give them to your friends, of course, they need to hand wash them and dry and press them, of course, before they wear them. And then that's it. Okay, I already said the other side. And so you'll end up with that little pleat, and that's what gives this such a good fit. And again, has this little pocket on the back. So it's a really good quality. There's a lot of face masks on the market, but not all of them have this pocket feature. This makes it so great. So again, if you want the pattern, I'll be happy to send it to you. And if you need elastic, I have elastic too. Okay, so have a great day. Thanks for joining me.